Hello and welcome to this video. Today we're going to be talking about some books that I'm really excited to read this fall. Most of these I feel like have a little bit of a fall vibe, so I figured I'd kick off the fall season with this video of my fall TBR. Alright, the number one book on this list that I am so excited for is called A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping. This is by Sengu Mandana, and it is not a sequel, but it takes place in the same world as The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, which I read last year for my Halloween readathon. I loved that book. That book was so whimsical and cute, and there was some romance in it, and I loved it. So I am so excited to pick up this new book in the same whimsical witchy world that I already love. Okay, book number 2 is Ruthless Vows, which is the sequel to Divine Rivals. I recently finished Divine Rivals and absolutely loved it. It was so good. If you like fantasy that has kind of like a historical fiction feel to it, where it's kind of rooted in like a historical event from our world, I think you really like this. If you like enemies, or in this case rivals to lovers, I think you would absolutely love this. It also is very similar to the movie You've Got Mail, so if you like any of those things or all of those things, I highly recommend Divine Rivals. And like I said, I just loved it. I love the chemistry between our main couple, Roman and Iris. The chemistry between the two of them is so good. The tension as they're figuring out how they feel about one another is palpable, and I love it. I love those things. I love that there is a little bit of magic in this world, a little bit of whimsy, and I just cannot wait to see what happens in the next book. Another book that I have talked about and I'm actually going to start reading today is Half a Soul. I've talked about this a few times already, but it's like Bridgerton meets cozy fantasy, and I'm so excited for that. I feel like fall is such a magical, whimsical time, and so it's perfect for fantasy, specifically cozy fantasy, when you just want to like wrap yourself up in a blanket and have a cup of tea and read a cozy, low stakes fantasy book. I'm so excited for Half a Soul. Along the lines of cozy fantasy is You Can't Spell Treason Without Tea. This is another cozy fantasy that I have had on my TBR for a while now. First of all, I'm a big tea lover. I love tea, so the fact that there's tea in the name and it's kind of focused around this tea shop, really excited by that. I'm just really looking forward to it. I've heard that there is a little bit of action, so for those of you who are hesitant about the cozy fantasy genre because you think it's a little bit too slow, there aren't any stakes, there's no action, I have heard that this one's there's a little bit more action, so if you like action, you might like this one. Next is The Last Tale of the Flower Bride. I recently came across this YouTuber. Her name is Grace. She has delightfully cozy and whimsical booktube vlogs and recommendation videos, so go check her out. But she recently read this book. It sounds right up my alley. It's like dark, gothic, fairy tale vibes, and that, yes, give it to me. It's about this man and this woman who get married, and the woman makes him agree that he will never ask her about her past. And then they have to return to her home or something like that. And because of that, it becomes really hard for him not to ask about her mysterious past. And it just sounds right up my alley, and I can't wait to read it. And just the dark magic of it, perfect for fall. I love magic all year round, but there's something about fall that is extra magical and whimsical. Along the lines of like whimsical fantasy fall, I also want to pick up some graphic novels. The 3 that I have on my radar that I would like to read this fall are The Moth Keeper by Kay O'Neill, Lightfall, I can't remember who wrote / illustrated that one, and The Squire. These are all kind of fantasy, whimsical graphic novels, and they just all look so cozy and magical, and I'm really hoping I can read all 3 of these this fall because they just look delightful. Next, Braiding Sweetgrass. This is a nonfiction. It's a collection of essays all about nature, all about different plants and what we can learn from these plants and nature, and how we can learn to appreciate the world we live in a little bit more and take care of it better. So I'm really excited to read this. It's been on my TBR for a long time, and it just feels right. to read this in fall for some reason. Moving on to the next one, this is called The Sorceress Comes to Call. It is by T. Kingfisher. It's a new release that is a retelling of The Goose Girl, the fairy tale called The Goose Girl. My favorite book as a teenager is The Goose Girl by Shannon Hale, which is also obviously a retelling of the Goose Girl fairy tale. So I'm really excited to see someone else's take on this fairy tale. And also at the beginning of the year, one of my must-read books for the year is a book by T. Kingfisher. I didn't limit it to one. I just wanted to read a book by T. Kingfisher by the end of this year. So that's part of the reason that this is on the list. And I'm really looking forward to checking this one out as soon as I can. Now we're getting into some spookier options. If you're into the spooky things, I am planning on doing another episode of my Reading Outside of My Comfort Zone series where I read horror books. Last year around Halloween time I read Mexican Gothic, and that was like the first horror book I'd ever read, and I actually really, really loved it. And so this year I want to read some more horror and make a little vlog out of it. Yeah, if you like horror, stay tuned for that. One of the books I am planning to read for that is called La Hacienda, which I've heard is very similar to Mexican Gothic, so I am really excited to kind of read that one and kind of compare it to Mexican Gothic and see what similarities I can find and see if I like it as much as I liked Mexican Gothic. All right, and the last books I have to mention are actually a series, and this is the series of Unfortunate Events. It is a series of 13 books. They're all for children, and it centers around these three siblings, Violet, Klaus, and Sonny Beauregard, and the events that happen after their parents mysteriously die. This series has been on my radar ever since I was a kid. I had friends who loved this series, but every time I picked it up, that first line, that first paragraph of the book where it's like, this is a really sad book. If you don't like sad books with sad beginnings and sad middles and sad ends, don't read it. And I took that literally and was like, I don't like sad books. The number of times I picked up that book and I read that paragraph, I can't even count, because like I wanted to like it, I wanted to read it, but I just took that warning a little bit too seriously. But earlier this year, I watched the Netflix adaptation of this series and loved it. So I now know that yes, it is sad, yes, it is unfortunate and dark, but it's also like not as sad as you think it is. It's kind of hopeful in a way. So I'm really excited to finally read this series, and I think fall, Halloween time, spooky season, like it seems like the perfect time to read the series of Unfortunate Events. So, and those are all of the books that I am really excited to pick up this fall. I would love to know what books you are looking forward to reading this fall, so let me know in a comment down below. And if you would like to subscribe to my channel and hear more about books, more book recommendations, I have a bunch of fall related book recommendation, reading vlogs, lots of things coming out this fall that I'm really excited for. So if that sounds interesting to you, please subscribe, and also know that if you subscribe, you will see polls like this, which is the reason why I made this video. You can help me decide what videos to make in the future, so consider subscribing if you want to. And with all that said, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening to me ramble about books, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.